This Week in Metropolis. The transmission will begin shortly.
King P here,
And Stelio7.
and we are back with season 2 of This Week in Metropolis.
Yeah, we're going for something different this series. We are hopefully going to have a few guests on the show, and we're going to start off the new season with friend of the show and good friend of mine, Marc Hayes. Welcome, Marc.
Hello, thank you for having me. Privilege,
Thank you for
privilege and a
coming.
pleasure. Thank you.
Well,
We
we're
know you're a devoted listener every week of the show.
Foundational listener,
Yes.
religious listener.
Only listener. And that is, of course, a lie.
There is one more.
That can't be true. Yeah, I've loved it from the beginning. I've learnt lots. I remember learning about the laptops with the all the different things that go on with the laptops. One of your episodes from there.
Yeah, we did that. We broke that news here on This Week in
That
Metropolis.
was an exclusive, right? An
Exclusive news.
World exclusive.
Yeah.
The boys.
Well, we've got you on the show, Marc, because we'd like your view and opinion on certain topics that we raise. And just recently, we went to see Once Upon a Time in New York, in Hollywood, even.
And the sequel,
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in New York. Yeah.
which we talked about in great detail before it came out.
Mainly because I was so excited for the film. Seeing the trailer, I thought it looked like the most incredible thing ever. It looked like proper classic Tarantino. The setting, the music, everything looked absolutely amazing. I don't know what your thoughts were, Marc, of the trailer.
I thought because obviously when you think about it, you think of the era. And you think of the sort of vibe that he was giving from it, and you think of the Manson murders, and you think, well, that's probably his kind of area. That's probably Tarantino's sort of expertise, and you think it's almost like a match made in heaven for how much they're going to do. But I don't know if the trailer. I don't know if the trailer and the film matched up. I mean, I haven't spoke to James about it, but I don't know.
Well, I was quite the opposite from the trailer. I just didn't really, and I think we spoke about it, Matt, on here. I didn't really understand what the storyline was because it seemed like two separate kind of avenues that it was going down. The story of Leonardo DiCaprio's character and his stunt double, and then which was Brad Pitt. And then Margot Robbie's character, which was Sharon Tate, who, based on, obviously, as Marc just mentioned, the real-life story that she was murdered by the Manson family, amongst other people as well. So I wasn't sure where the connection was. And then we obviously saw the film, and I think we both, at the end of it, kind of looked at each other and was like, yeah, I didn't quite...
What have we just seen?
Yeah, that was the outcome.
What has happened?
And that was the key question. I think, what has happened? I've been here for 2 hours and however long it was, and I don't feel like I've really seen anything happen apart from that in the last 5 minutes.
Can we talk about the ending? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's been out long enough. For anyone listening, we can tell you exactly what happens. So yeah. Switch off now.
I suppose that's where the title comes from. So I suppose the fact that it's called Once Upon a Time, it's almost like a fairy tale version of the events, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you suppose he's sort of going, well, haha, you thought you were going to see a grisly murder of a pregnant woman and her friends, and haha, you didn't see it. And also,
you didn't get what you want.
Yeah, and also, isn't it? This is like a nice little story. So I suppose from Tarantino, that's what you'd expect. You'd expect to sort of see a bit of Matt Manson, who was in it, I think, for
Oh,
The second.
Yeah, and it is literally the bit that you see in the trailer, isn't it? Where Brad Pitt's on the roof and he looks around and sort of smiles and waves and that shit up.
Yeah.
So it's all. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think I said something similar when we came out of the cinema. The whole title, "Once Upon a Time," it does lead you down a different path. It's a different take on real life events. But for me, I think the problem that I had is what we associate with Tarantino films is the violence and is these extravagant, extreme fight scenes of people getting murdered. I always go back to it, and I'll keep going back to it in Django, in that hallway entrance of the house where there's just and you're just like, is this ever going to end? People were just getting killed left, right, and centre. But that wasn't just the sole shooting moment in that film. There was several, and I felt, other than the bit of the kind of ranch or whatever it was where Brad Pitt went to, where there was a bit of a fight scene, there wasn't really that much.
Well, there was the bit with the Manson family when they go to sort of the wrong house, I suppose. Don't they, when he throws the can of dog food in her face and then batches her, does all that kind of stuff. So I suppose that's sort of your Tarantino violence bit, isn't it?
It was very minimal, wasn't it, in this film?
Yeah.
I think the thing that was minimal as well, though, was again you're mentioning the classic things that Tarantino has in his films. I felt that the pace of it was lacking, and often with the way he presents a lot of his films is that you almost get several snapshots, don't you? You have sort of part of the story, and then you have another part, and then you have another part, and then by maybe the third part, you think, oh right, I know how that fits into the story. And even though it was presented to a certain extent in little sections, there didn't seem to have any, well, not any, but much relation to the others. Even the closest bit I think that came to his usual style was when there was a little bit of narration about Brad Pitt's character and how the I think it's Kurt Russell's character doesn't trust him. It's about him killing his wife potentially.
Yeah.
And it cuts to that bit. But for me, that felt, because the rest of the film was so slow, that sort of stood out a bit, where it didn't quite sit right with the film, and it didn't come to any conclusion either. It was just that one bit that they mentioned it, and then no more, which was quite odd. But one thing, just to expand upon that, one theory I read, and I can't remember where I read it, but apparently Tarantino used the same editor. It was a lady called Sally Menk. He used the same editor for every single one of his films until very recently, until 2010, because she died. And since then, he's had a different editor on the film. So I don't know whether that played any part in the difference with it.
Could have done. And I mean, it's interesting now to see where he goes, because we were talking about this prior to the film, that he supposedly said, and don't get me wrong, people do tend to change what they might have said years previous, but he said that he's only going to do 10 films, and that was his 9th. Am I right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for that one, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are at the box office and things like that and how well it's done, but for that one to be, in my opinion, and from the people who I know have seen it, have said the same sort of thing, I wonder where he goes from here, because I know he's linked with Star Trek movie, doing that, the next one of that. So it's interesting to see, because that certainly I wouldn't imagine being a Tarantino style.
I did read somewhere, I see somewhere that his 10th film was going to be, he said it was going to be some sort of epilogue film.
Right.
And I don't really know what that means, but I don't know.
I was going to say exactly that. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you presume that kind of means that it's kind of like a summary of all these other films. I mean, I don't know. Did you stay behind and watch the extra scene after the credit?
Do you know what? We had the conversation. We were sitting there. We was a bit sort of deflated by the film, and I think James said, "It's not going to be an end credit thing." I was like, "No, it's not going to be an end credit thing." So we left, and we missed it.
I mean, you didn't miss any, but I mean, I didn't wait either because I was done. I was done with the film by that point.
Yeah.
But apparently, it's the main character. He's doing an advertisement for cigarettes.
Yeah.
And apparently, these cigarettes are what he used in somehow. They're in every film.
Yeah, Red Apple something. I think they're called, aren't they?
So I don't know. I mean, because apparently, I haven't verified this myself, so I don't know it for a fact. But I have read somewhere that there is a sort of Tarantino universe.
Yeah.
There have been sort of suggesting that, I don't know if in The Hateful Eight they mention Django or in the other way around, Django mentions The Hateful Eight. I think there is some very minor character crossover with Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and things like that.
So, because the Michael Madsen is John Travolta's character's brother.
Oh, right. See, there you go. Yeah. So, yeah.
I can't remember. When they're Vinny Vega and someone Vega, I think. So, yeah. They're...
So who knows? Maybe Tarantino, as he's ending, will do a proper MCU crossover. He'll get all the characters back for one big fight, one big I don't know.
Is this the first film that he's done where he's used people playing real people, as in you've got Bruce Lee in it, you've got Sharon Tate. There's a couple of others, aren't there? Who we talked about in it, Stephen.
I mean, they talked a lot about how this links to Inglourious Basterds, because Inglourious Basterds talks about it's like obviously real life events, isn't it? Sort of the Nazis, and then that it's sort of at the end of that film, they change what happens to the Nazis. So and he's changed here what happened with Sharon Tate. So I don't know. There's lots of comparisons there.
Well, just to continue from you saying it'd be an epilogue film, the definition of an epilogue is a section or speech at the end of a book or play that serves as a comment on or a conclusion to what has happened. So there we go.
What'll be interesting about that is he's got a number of actors amongst these films who have played multiple characters in the different films, so it'd be interesting to see how he works around that if he does. I mean, some of them don't necessarily have to all be in. If it was to be one final hurrah, but I
mean, I would just say you were saying you were sort of baffled by the film, and I think I came a bit. Yeah, I was a bit angry. I was a bit like, well, I don't know what we're supposed to have learned about these characters. I don't know what we're supposed to have. Yeah. They talk about character arcs and things like that. I don't know if that was really there. It was a very good set piece for the 1960s. Obviously, that was a bit the 1960s and all the cars and the clothes and the music and things like that. But no, I tell you the bit I did love the most, and I thought, if the film was more like this, it would have been great. That kind of part where he's where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is acting. And we know that he's acting in a film, and the camera rolls back at one point. And he says, "Oh, I'll do that bit again," and then he kind of gets annoyed, and that was like a film within a film. That was really interesting, and I was thinking, oh, if maybe they'd done that a little bit, like it reminded me. I know it sounds silly, a bit like Extras. In Extras, they were doing a film or a TV show, and that was sometimes quite interesting. But then they kind of came back from that, and they were just chatting, kind of when they're not filming. So there'd have been a bit more of that. I think that might have been quite interesting, because I was actually enjoying the Western film that they were supposedly making. I thought that was an enjoyable part. But yeah. Again,
I just felt with that bit, I think Leonardo DiCaprio acted so well in it, and they all did really, but with that, it wasn't just because it was almost in real time. A lot of the scenes, you felt like, I guess it could be a positive. You felt like you was almost on that film set, just watching what was going on, and it's just a bit.
I know. I think we both said, Matt. I found that the relevance to what I think. We're all waiting. Every time there was something relating to the Sharon Tate stuff, we're sitting there waiting in anticipation for all that to kick off. And that almost probably ruined it for me, the rest of the film, because for me, I felt that the bit about him being an actor and the only relevance was that he lived next door to her. There was never any part where they crossed over or interacted with each other until the end. And I just felt like that almost granted, with the title of the film and when you think about it afterwards, yeah, it all does link up.
But so what? But so what? You know, it all links up at the end. But then you think, oh, but then okay, then what?
Yeah, I just kind of think, you know, that the two, if it, like you say, Mark, if it was one where it was focusing on that, and then there was maybe its own storyline rather than it being about Sharon Tate, which I think is what we were waiting for at the end. I mean, some of them scenes, the end scene when when Brad Pitt and his dog are essentially killing everyone.
That woman, yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there like cringing. It was like, oh my god, I can't watch this. This is like, it was like, I don't know, the adrenaline in me was going. Do you know what I mean? It was.
But they were laughing in the cinema I went to. They were laughing at that.
I think we probably had a bit of a chuckle at some point, like when the dog just attacked the geezer and ripped his nuts off. Do you know what I mean?
It's so extreme, isn't it? It is almost comedy. But I found the dread of throughout it. I kept thinking, where's he going to go with the Sharon Tate thing? What's he going to do? And I remember reading before that I think he got permission from her sister or something like that to include her in the film, and her sister signed off on it. And I was thinking, well, it can't be, he's not going to act it out or anything. Yeah. But how's this going to fit in? But I guess the way I interpret why she was in it, and my interpretation of what he may have been trying to do. Leonardo's character was really washed up and on the end of his career, whereas she was on the come up of her career and was the hot thing at the moment. So maybe he was trying to get that sort of contrast in the two, but I don't know.
What I did enjoy from the film was the trailers. I mean, I've always been a fan of trailers. It's usually one of my favourite.
Saw the trailers, gone home.
one of my favourite parts of a movie experience is seeing the trailers usually, and we saw a few in there that we quite like the look of, Matt. Ad Astra.
Yeah, that looks awesome. Terrible name though.
There's got no.
To the Stars.
Oh, that makes sense.
Good name.
But one of the best names I've ever heard.
Well, why don't they just call it To the Stars?
Because that sounds good.
Yeah. That looks good.
By the way, I didn't just know it. I did have to Google it.
And is it Tenet?
Tenant, yeah.
It's not Tenant. It's Tenet, I believe.
But I think, but it is still pronounced Tenant, I believe.
Is it really?
You have a Tenant belief, yeah.
Not named after David.
I haven't seen that trailer. No, I haven't seen that trailer. What happens? I know it's only a teaser. What happens in that?
Well, it's got. Now I know I'm going to get his name wrong here, but I think it's David John Washington or it's John David Washington, I believe.
I don't know who that is.
Max, you look that up while I'm there. He is one of the stars in the TV show Ballers, which is. Got Dwayne
John David Washington, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, he looks like he's the lead in it, doesn't he, Matt?
Yeah, I think I went to the toilet during this trailer.
Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you?
So Matt would appreciate you explaining the trailer as well. So
yeah.
Well, that's all I got from it, really. But it looks really good.
It's good.
No, it
did. Nolan one.
Yeah, this is the Christopher Nolan one. So, I mean, I think I don't even need to really understand what I'm watching. The film's going to be.
No. It'll just look great and it'll be really confusing, but you'll enjoy it.
But I did read somewhere about it being kind of Inception meets.
Well,
Spider-Man.
I remember. I think I saw the title or the design of the title, and I think isn't the second T upside down. Is that correct?
It's something like that, yeah.
I have to say that because Tenant is a palindrome. It reads the same forwards as it does backwards. Yeah. So I don't know if because that would be a very Nolan-y thing to do. So it's some sort of film that, I mean, if you've seen Memento, it's all that kind of stuff, isn't it? So I don't know if that's got some relevance to it. But I think I would just go and see that because it's Christopher Nolan. He's a genius.
Yeah. And speaking of Christopher Nolan, although he's not involved in the next film, I want to get your views on.
Good link.
He obviously did make the Dark Knight trilogy, and linked to that is the latest Joker trailer, the final Joker trailer, I believe it is. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, I haven't seen the latest trailer because
No.
because I just decided I'm going to see it anyway. I have seen whatever the one before was because I just decided that it was something I was going to go see, and I probably wouldn't spoil it anymore for myself. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was obviously dubious at first because obviously you think about, they've done the Jared Leto, that wasn't even that long ago. They've kind of seemed to have abandoned that now, which is strange. But once you think about it, Joaquin Phoenix is just a great choice.
Yeah.
And then when you hear that what did they give, 8 minutes worth of applause? Was it when it
Yeah.
was
Which
standing ovation for it? So
we've talked about this though. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood got 7 minutes, I think.
oh
So
no,
The latest craze.
yeah, that's it.
no, I mean it just sounds astounding. When I have read some things that have spoiled it a bit for me already, but I think this is probably the route that DC should go down. I think maybe they should abandon the trying to be like
Yeah.
the
Marvel.
MCU. And I think they should just probably focus on making great, incredible films, and
Yeah.
they've got the scope and the ability to do that. So yeah, no, I mean I'm hoping I'm probably going to see it a couple of times. I think that's my plan already.
Yeah, one of the things I said to Matt the other day was that what's interesting is that it does seem to be an origin film of the Joker.
Yeah.
But the fact that they've got Joaquin Phoenix to play him, slightly older actor, do you think that's a good path to go down? Because is there the longevity in him playing that character?
But would you need longevity? Would you? I mean, if it's a fantastic film and it goes really well, you don't necessarily need to see 10 sequels.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying about the sequels, but obviously there's going to be a Batman movie coming up. I don't know, when's that due? Next year, is it?
I think maybe a bit later than that, possibly.
Really? Okay.
But does that need to fit in?
Well, one of the arguments that we've discussed, and another listener of the show has said to me that he's not excited by the thought of a Joker movie, a standalone Joker movie, and I think that links to the concept of, well, you don't have a Joker without Batman, and that there needs to be that good and bad in a film. But
Well,
I mean,
I suppose it's how well it's done. I suppose if it's done really well. I mean, I suppose a lot of people have said the same about Venom. I mean, obviously, I wasn't a massive fan of Venom, but it's done very, very well. So they would probably say that's not accurate. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will fit in. But I mean, from what I heard from the Batman film, it's going to have already about 7 different villains because it's going to be based on Long Halloween. So maybe you don't need the Joker.
What are your thoughts, Matt, on the new Joker movie?
I think it looks absolutely incredible. It captures the mood and the sort of bleak outlook that I like from the Batman films, and I like from Batman as a character generally, and particularly Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight was a perfect example of that. He's not meant to be a particularly nice character. He's not meant to be I don't know, can't think of the word. He's got to where he is through his his unfortunate life as such, and I think this seems to paint a perfect version of that, to say the least.
I think when I did hear that they were going to do a Joker film and it was going to have a very clear origin, I do remember being a bit disappointed by that, because what the great things about the Heath Ledger Joker is he tells very different stories about how he got the stars. Yeah, and he's meant to be sort of an unreliable, inconsistent character because that's part of it. Yeah, and that's really cool. And also in The Killing Joke, the comic book, he says that that's an origin for him as well. Yeah. But there's all it needs is one line, and in that comic book it says, if I'm gonna have a origin, I'd rather it to be multiple choice. So if this Joaquin Phoenix, if this is an origin story, it might be one version out of many that he's become, and it might, in that film, who knows, they might just say, oh, I think it went that way, because that adds that layer of mystery as well. Because if obviously he's not a stable person, that makes it more exciting. So no, I mean I do remember when I read a preview, they said it's going to be talked about for years, and I think they're going to say it might. Comic book kind of people will really get on board with it. So
yeah. And I think the choice of actor with it works. But he is very able to deliver that sort of intensity, and I think even in his personal life, he's known for being a bit crazy, in a sense. I didn't really want to say that, but a bit kooky, a bit off the left field. And I think he can channel that well, but also a bit the fact he's not really. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong with this. I don't think he's really done a great deal recently, and I think that's quite nice to. He
did that film. What was it called? You Were Never Really Here. I don't know if you've heard of that one. That was a bit more of an art housey film, and a friend of mine mentioned to me, and it was good, but it wasn't your kind of Cineplex blockbuster. It was good character study of sort of a hitman assassin, but it wasn't your regular film. But it was worth a watch, and he's obviously very good. I mean, I still remember him as Commodus in Gladiator, and that was creepy enough, and that was nearly 20 years ago.
A film I still haven't seen. Just
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
First the Dark Crystal, and now this.
Well, I know.
I've got two questions. One point actually off of what you've just said about him, almost it being a bit kind of not a actor picked who's currently the best, the biggest thing or the biggest star in the world, and I think that's quite good. And do you think that's a similar thing that DC are trying to do now? Because obviously Robert Pattinson. I mean, I think I was reading the other day about Robert Pattinson. He was actually in quite a well-regarded film within the last year or two. That wasn't Twilight, obviously, which is the only thing I know him for. Do you think that's maybe another route that they're going down now?
What, in terms of that they're trying to find sort of actors you wouldn't necessarily assume?
Yeah, maybe once. I mean, when you think about, another program that we're all fans of, I know, True Detective, when that first came out, they picked up actors for that hadn't really been in the limelight and needed something to almost rebuild them. And look where they are.
Strong actors in
their own right. Yeah, in their own rights. But I think maybe they were a bit typecasted before. You think Matthew McConaughey was always in chick flicks, and he was the hunk. But now, like in that, it was gritty. It showed a different side of him. And I wonder whether.
Look at Heath Ledger when he was.
True, he was very, very much the same, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Heartthrob, wouldn't he? Sort of.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think that's a route they should go down, where they're picking out people who might be able to show a different side to them as well, and not someone you automatically, we use Ben Affleck as an example. Everyone was so annoyed about that, and don't get me wrong, he was okay. I thought it was just the electronic voice that didn't work for me, but it's picking someone a bit more obscure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was funny. There was something that I was reading during the week about giving the audience what they want, and I don't know, it might have been Stan Lee who said, don't give the audience what they want, give them what they don't know they want. Yeah. And so sometimes you can go and watch a film and you think, oh, I never even thought of that, and then it kind of they twist your expectations and they make it better. I think after Heath Ledger and also Ben Affleck as Batman, I think I'm not so sort of keyboard warrior about sort of different actors playing different roles that I wouldn't necessarily see, because you don't know what they're going to bring to it, and also you don't know what the director, the costume designer, the producer, all the cinematographer, what they're going to bring to it. So it's not just that one person. So. Yeah, I mean, as long as they do a good film with Batman and they do everything well and it comes from a good place, then I can't see any problem with it.
I read earlier in the week about Robert Pattinson, and he was him being interviewed for it's something like Vanity Fair, I think. It's one of those publications, but he talked briefly about Batman, and I think he it was him that really, really wanted the role. It wasn't necessarily the case that he was handpicked for it. And he sort of went to the director and was had made notes on the character and done his homework and sort of put his case across to do it, which I think is reassuring.
Well, one of the things, I think I read a similar article. It was probably the same one.
Yeah.
Because am I right in thinking he recently worked on a film with Christopher Nolan and got speaking to him about Batman and the suit and all this stuff? Because some of the stuff I've read is about now he said he's worn the new suit, and he said the second you put it on, you almost feel powerful. He said it's ridiculous. It just gives you this kind of sense of power. But that was
what him as Bruce Wayne. I think he's gonna. Bruce Wayne. I'm not sure about Batman, but again, that's all part of it, isn't it? So
yeah. And just finally on the Joker, something you mentioned there about Jared Leto being the more recent Joker. Is it a bit strange that they're going ahead with this Birds of Prey, which is a Harley Quinn spin-off?
Yeah.
Still using Margot Robbie, so. That's coming. I mean, I've not seen Suicide Squad, so I don't even know what happened to the Joker in that.
You're not missing anything.
But did obviously it's all under DC. So where do you think they're going with that? If they're still carrying on with her character?
Well, presumably they're not going out anymore, because she says in that, I'm so over clown. So presumably they're over, which again I know does happen in the comics as well. Sometimes they're sort of off and on again, and their relationship is actually quite unhealthy and not very nice based on the comics. And I suppose because Jared Leto's Joker didn't go down so well for whatever reason, I suppose they want to free that up a bit, and I suppose they want something that's going to have, because the Birds of Prey are all female superheroes or costumed about people. Black Canary, I think, and people like that are in it. So they obviously just want to go in a different direction. But Margot Robbie was a very good Harley Quinn. So I suppose that's the direction they want to go. I do feel sorry for Jared Leto, because I know he has spoken in the past that he did so much more filming for that role than they ever actually showed. Right. Which is a shame, because there was lots in that trailer that obviously didn't make it into the film, and I think there was a whole other story there. So I do feel for him a little bit. I mean, I didn't like Gangster Joker as they tried to do there. But again, I mean, I think Margot Robbie is great, and I think if they do good films, you don't have to worry about linking to the Joker. Presumably, the Joker's in the background somewhere, but he's doing something else. He's he's chillaxing.
I guess that while we're on the subject of superhero movies, we don't know too much about where this is going, so we probably it'd just be our opinions at this early stage. But obviously the Spider-Man situation has recently developed that Sony and Marvel haven't, or Sony and Disney haven't come to an agreement on Disney continuing with the character. So he's going back to Sony now. This obviously creates a bit of an issue now for Marvel moving forward.
Well, I mean, obviously there's lots of sort of fog of war around this, because I think Sony were blaming Marvel and Kevin Feige. I think Marvel were blaming Sony, and it was all sort of up in the air. I mean, I think really, I've seen lots of sort of people online saying about it. So I think really it's just sort of the fans that have missed out on it, really, because Spider-Man does belong. I know Spider-Man can be on his own, but I think he's going to miss out being part of that bigger world. I mean, Spider-Man in every packed cinema when I went to see Infinity War and Endgame, Spider-Man got the biggest applause out of any character, and when Spider-Man came back in Endgame, he always got the biggest applause, and I think people were really proud that he was back. So for him to not be part of it now, I think is very strange. I mean, what is it that Marvel apparently they're asking for 50% of the profits? I don't know, up from 5%. I don't know if that's fair, but considering
the current Spider-Man is one of the best executions of Spider-Man by far. I think he's great, but yeah, it's a bit of an odd. Does Marvel have would this Spider-Man been as successful without Marvel universe? I don't know. The dynamic between Iron Man and Spider-Man, I think, is part of what sort of made it great in a way. And certainly in Endgame and that the emotional sort of aspects of it and so on. So no.
And it'll be interesting to see now whether they whether they go down the route of incorporating Venom and what's coming up in the future for the next Venom. I'm guessing they'll do the next Venom movie, because that ended. Although again, I've not seen it, but from what people have told me, the way that ended, it was set up for the next one with Carnage, I believe. So I guess
they're playing Carnage.
Was it Woody Harrelson?
Yeah.
Which again, we were talking going back to True Detective. It was that for me that kind of gave him a second, third, fourth.
But it's the same what you've been saying about weird sort of casting roles, because Carnage, from what I remember from the especially from the animated show, he was like a scrawny little sort of angry little man.
Yeah,
and obviously, and that's not what Woody Harrelson is. But again, he's an actor, and I'm sure he'll do it very well. But Venom made over $1 billion. So to pair Spider-Man with Venom, it's just a no-brainer, I suppose.
It's crazy as well. So I thought my perspective on Venom was it was all right, and it was a perfectly watchable film, and there wasn't. It's fine. I think Riz Ahmed in it was brilliant as the sort of twisted sort of entrepreneur character and that. But I felt it didn't really know what he wanted to be. The comedy was very cheesy for what. Oh, I want to eat his head. Oh no, you can't say that. That's disgusting. It's a bit like that. So yeah. It contrasted with, Riz Ahmed doing these horrendous experiments on people, trying to, get the host to sort of work and so on. But,
I suppose because you didn't really get a proper version of Venom in Spider-Man 3. I mean, that was obviously just such an awful film anyway.
Oh, God.
I suppose I was very pleased to see a proper Venom, like a proper toothy, loads of teeth, massive sort of tongue, proper well done Venom, and so that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it's a real loss, and I actually didn't mind the Amazing Spider-Mans with Andrew Garfield. I thought it was okay.
Okay, weren't they?
But so only time will tell. But I think it'll be a big loss for both of them.
Yeah,
their whole roster now with all sort of already planned without Spider-Man. So maybe they won't even care possibly in the long run.
Yeah. Well, they've insisted, just reading that Sony's chairman has stressed there's no ill will between the companies, and did hint at a resolution in the future, saying it's a long life. To this article, but by that time you'll probably have a different Spider-Man.
Well, exactly.
So
already in Homecoming they've got Miles Morales' uncle. So not that would be necessarily a bad thing, but it probably wouldn't be Tom Holland, because obviously, you'd assume that he'd be onto bigger and better things.
But that's it. I guess with that, as you said that with Into the Spider-Verse, what a phenomenal film that was.
Fantastic.
And that proved that they can use that property and do amazing things with it, because that is by far my favourite Spider-Man film. I think out of all of them, it's just mind-blowing. You've
still not seen that yet, have you?
No, I've not seen that yet. And again, it's on the list, but it's not as bad as not seeing Gladiator. So,
well,
it's nearly 20 years old, and you need to go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Okay, so thanks for coming on the show, Mark. It's been nice to hear someone else's views other than just Matt and mine. And hopefully you'll come on again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been lovely talking such geeky stuff with you. So thank you very much. A pleasure. Thank you.
If you do want to check out our show, you can find us on what are we on now, Matt?
Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, maybe.
But you'll find all the links on our Instagram and our Twitter pages. Just search for This Week in Metropolis, and you'll find us. Other than that, we will speak to you next week.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Transmission over.